welcome to the 8th episode of the Ash Christine Designs podcast. This is a podcast where I talk all about my knitting, my crochet, and any other crafty adventures that I get up to. Thank you so much for tuning in for this episode. If you are a brand new viewer, then hi, welcome to the channel. If you are a returning viewer or you were a previous viewer, hi, welcome back. I did take a super long break. I know it was at least a year between episode 7 and episode 8. Life got busy. I kind of pushed this to the back burner. I decided that it wasn't that important to me. And then I needed to take a break and kind of mentally reset. And that did help, because I'm coming back stronger than before. And I'm very, very excited to talk about all things knitting today with you guys. So again, thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope that you enjoy today's episode. I didn't pull out everything that I finished between episodes 7 and 8, because obviously we would be here for a very long time. But I did pull out a few recent finished objects. I thought we'd start with the smallest and most recent finish. Or this one's not the most recent, but it's the quickest. So it's this simple baby beanie. This is a pattern that doesn't have a name yet. This is a design that's coming out either later this year or early next year. I'm aiming for the end of this year. I think winter time would be a great time for this beanie to come out, and I'm gonna have it sized from like little kids, like newborn size, to a couple of sizes for adults, like adult, medium, small, and large. So the pattern is not out yet. I'm hoping for the end of this year, and I'm gonna give you a close-up look at the design and the colors. Hopefully that shows up pretty clear. I am sitting right by a window, so hopefully that helps. But I thought I'd go ahead and run through the details of this real quick. I do have some notes that I'm looking at, so if you see me looking over there, I'm looking at my notes. So the pattern's coming out soon. There's no current name for it. It is based on my Stained Glass Rain sock pattern, which is a sock pattern that's available on Ravelry, Etsy, Lovecrafts, all those places. But this yarn that I used here was Big Twist White. It's just the Joann store brand, and I used probably about 100 yards or so, probably less. I need to get better at weighing my skeins before and after, but I didn't weigh this one. And then the rainbow yarn in here I used was Lion Brand Ice Cream Cotton Blend, and I used around 40 yards maybe of the rainbow colorway. So that's what that looks like. Super fun. And the needles I used were just a US 8 5mm. It was either Knit Picks interchangeables, the shorts, the 16-inch interchangeables, or it was a Chiaogu 16-inch fixed circular. Either one, I'm not sure which. And I started this beanie February 4th, 2023, and finished February 10th, 2023. And that is the most impressive stat that you'll hear all episode, because everything else has taken me a very long time to finish. Moving on to the next recently finished object. That is a matching baby sweater. How cute is this? I'm obsessed. So this one is going to be released as a children's design and an adult's design. The first version I'm working up, this was like a sample version I knit for myself, so I could understand kind of what I was doing, because I was confusing myself on a specific increase and which one would look better, and I swatched and couldn't decide, so I decided to knit a little baby sample, and then hopefully that would help me, and it did. So the first version I'm going to be knitting up is actually going to be a fingering weight for the adults, and then a little later on I'm planning on knitting this up as the worsted weight gauge. This sweater right here, the baby sweater, is knitted a worsted weight gauge, but I do want to make an adult version that's worsted weight. But the first version that I'm going to release is going to be fingering weight, sized from like mainly just the adult sizes, and then after that I'm going to figure out the fingering weight for the baby sizes, and then kind of work backwards to do the worsted weight for the adults, since I've already got it figured out for the children. Anyway, same yarn information as before. The white is Big Twist in the white colorway, maybe around 200 yards if that, and then the same rainbow yarn was used, the Lion Brand Ice Cream Cotton Blend in the rainbow colorway, and I probably used around 60 to 70, maybe 80 yards of that one. Again, I need to remember to weigh my yarn before and after so I get an accurate count. But anyway, I started this sweater December 25th, 2022, and I finished it January 27th, 2023. So not that long, but still longer than the beanie. And again, that's going to be one of the least impressive stats you hear, because we're going downhill. Okay, my next recently finished object is this contrast chevron cowl. I absolutely adore the way that this thing came out, even though it did take me quite a long time to knit it. So this pattern is actually the very first pattern I ever released back in 2017. It is currently available on Ravelry, Etsy, Lovecrafts, anywhere that you can find patterns, it should be available. But as this was my first, it's gone through several updates in terms of updating the logo, updating the terminology that I use. As I grew as a pattern writer and a designer, I did change a few things over the years about how I phrase things, how I lay things out in a pattern to make it simple. Obviously my logo went through a few changes. So this pattern has seen the most changes out of any of them because I've been updating it throughout the years. But this one's getting ready to get a big overhaul. If you have knit the contrast chevron cowl before, or if you've ever seen a photo of it, you know that this is not the typical length of the cowl. The typical length is very short, which is great. That makes for a great, quick weekend stash buster project. And I will still keep that short size in there. But I just recently wanted to change a few things. I added some length to the overall ribbing. I added some plain stockinette between the first and the last stripe before the ribbing, and yeah, I'm super happy with the way that it came out, and these colors are kind of my jam. Hopefully that's showing up pretty well. Okay, so let's talk a little bit of detail about this. So the yarn that I used was Yarn Bee Soft Secret Solids, around 150 yards or so. And that is in like a gray colorway. I didn't write that down. I believe it's charcoal, maybe. And then I just used some various worsted weight scraps that I had, including Caron Simply Soft, Big Twist, anything that I had within reach. I used and then repeated up the other side. Needles used were US 7 Knit Picks Interchangeables, most likely. And then I started this May 17th, 2022, and finished February 21st, 2023. So very long time. As I said, my stats get less and less impressive the further along we go. But yeah, super happy with this one. I need to give it its proper photograph session. I need to give it, you know, a real good photograph, some modeled shots and everything, and then get the pattern fully updated with, I have changed my logo again since the last time I updated it. I went through a moment. So I need to update the logo, I need to update the terminology, I need to update the overall pattern, include some changes that I made with this sample, and kind of go from there. But yeah, so that'll be out very soon. If you purchased a copy on Ravelry, you'll get the update completely free. If you purchase an update between now and when I update the pattern again on Ravelry, you'll get that update pushed out for free. So if you are interested in this, I will leave links to any of these patterns that are available. I'll leave them in the description below. Okay, and that is my most recent finished object. I do not have another finished object that I have done since then. So let's move on into works in progress. We're going to start with my oldest work in progress, or the work in progress that's been on my needles the longest, and that is going to be my Meet Me in the Garden headbands. It's a very simple design. Some rows of some columns of knit stitches interspersed with columns of garter. Very stretchy headband, super cute. I'm close to halfway on this one, and then it's gonna have a neat little closure that I'm looking forward to doing. But the yarn I'm using for this is Knit Pick Stroll in the pea pod colorway, and I had about a little more than half a skein. On my screen that's showing up very clear. Hopefully the colorway comes across for you guys. But yeah, this was a headband I started in 2021, apparently. According to Ravelry, my cast on date was December 9th, 2021, which, that's insane. That's insane. I kept meaning to finish it last year, and I kept telling myself, like, oh, it hasn't been on my needles that long. I must have cast this on in the spring, and then, lo and behold, a whole year ago. So yeah, I'm super excited. This one might be my next work in progress that gets off the needles, because I think this would be a great design to release for the summertime. I would like to do spring, but spring's coming up pretty quick, and I don't know that I could have testers on this maybe May, June era is when I can release this, depending. Give you another shot at the patterning there. But yeah, I'm super, super happy with this, super excited for it. This should be my next finished work in progress. Oh, and the needles that I'm using for this are a US 4 3.5mm needle. And they're just my Chiaogu red lace. Next up is a project that is living in my Supernatural bag. This is a bag by Stitching Plaza. Her logo's right there. Hopefully you can see that. This is a project that I cast on after the end of the Finish Then Frolic make-along, which is a make-along I hosted from January 1st to February 5th this year. And on February 5th, we all got together on a Instagram Live and cast on a new project to celebrate finishing an old project or celebrate making progress on an old project. So I decided for my February 5th cast on, I was going to cast on a Musselburgh beanie. And I know that everyone pronounces that differently. I don't know how it's actually supposed to be pronounced by the designer. I know some people say Musselburgh. I've always said Musselburgh. So if that's incorrect, let me know. But here's mine. And I am into the stockinette. I finished the increases a while ago. Hopefully that color shows up. It looks like it might be getting teeny tiny bit blown out. But it's a nice, lovely purple that's doing like a gradient into the next section of purple. I'm on like the third color of the third purple. And the yarn that I'm using, if I can get it out of the bag without destroying it. Here's the yarn I'm using. This is Lion Brand Mandala Baby in the Magic Moon colorway. And this is a brand new skein, so we'll see how much of this I actually end up using for a Musselburgh. I talked about it on the live, but this yarn always ends up back in my stash. People always gift this to me because it's, I mean, come on, it's super pretty. But yeah, this yarn always ends up back in my stash. I make baby blankets from it, baby sweaters, beanies sometimes, and it always ends up back in my stash. So this time I thought it might be fun to make a beanie for myself, and I do love these purples quite a bit. But yeah, so I already said my cast on date for this was February 5th. I'm hoping to have it done by the end of March, but I'm also in no rush because I have a lot of, you know, in the car time during March, so this is going to be great knitting to take along with me. So it's just stockinette. It's like one giant sock. And if you watched any of my previous episodes or you know me from Instagram, you know I love me a good vanilla sock. But yeah, these are using US 4 or 3.5mm needles, and I'm using my Knit Picks interchangeables, the short ones. I can't remember what they're called. I know the options are the long ones, but the shorts. They might just be called nickel-plated shorts. Anyways, that's what I'm using for that Musselburgh project. Last work in progress is living in my From London with Love bag, and this is fabric that I picked up years and years and years ago, and then I sent to Georgianne of Stitching Plaza. There's her logo again. I sent to Georgianne of Stitching Plaza to sew up into a bag for me. We did a little trade. If you're ever looking for a bag, reach out to Georgianne. Not only is her shop typically stocked with amazing, amazing bags, but you know, if you have like a specific bag in mind, I know that she would like do what she can to make it come to life. Like, she's incredible. But the project that's living in here is actually the very, very start of a pinwheel scrap blanket. If you follow me on Instagram at all, you know that this is my magnum opus. I knit a pinwheel scrap blanket in, I believe I started it in 2018 and finished it in like late 2020 or early 2021. It was the project, okay? And the fact that I'm knitting another one so soon is surprising to me, but also not really, because this is one of my favorite things to knit ever. It's garter stitch, it's simple, it's quick. Each one of these little triangles takes me around 15 minutes or so to knit. So it's very, very quick to just, you know, on my lunch break, in between work tasks, just a triangle at a time. It's great, it's fantastic. The yarn that or I guess I'll talk about the needles. I'm just using some double pointed needles. I believe these are just boy knitting needles. These are most likely like some of the first needles I ever got, but I use them for this project every time. This is my second iteration, and I do have kind of like a deadline date by this one. I'd like to finish it by the end of March. I'm still on the first block. I'm gonna keep holding it up because I love it. I love the pinwheel scrap blanket. Okay, I'm gonna put it down so I can actually talk about information. So this is a pattern by Mina Phillip, or Knitting Expat Designs. It's just called the Pinwheel Scrap Blanket. It is a epic project to take on. It's amazing. The needles that I'm using for this are just, like I said, just probably some Boy double pointed needles, US 7 or 4.5 millimeter needles. And the yarn I'm using is just worsted weight scraps. So anything worsted weight that I made all year, I have been throwing into a bin. I have labeled scraps, and I've just been pulling from there when I started. And I'm so excited to be working on this project. You have no idea how long I've waited to cast on another one of these. And the fact that I'm doing it kind of last minute is very me, but you know, we'll see if I can knit a throw-sized pinwheel scrap blanket in like a little over 30 days. I'm nothing if not ambitious. So that's the end of my works in progress. I would talk about some recent stack acquisitions, but honestly, I have not bought any yarn this year other than a single skein of velvet yarn for a specific project someone asked me to do, and I've still not done it yet. But yeah, I've not bought any yarn in 2023. I'm not on like a yarn ban or anything. If there's something that I want, I'll get it. I'm not restricting myself in that sense. I just know from where I'm sitting, I can see 90% of my stash, and I just know that that's not me anymore. I don't want to buy more stash just to have more stash. Kind of when I was starting out, it was like everything that I saw, I was like, yes, absolutely, I'm gonna get this. Oh, I don't have this skein. Oh, I'm gonna get this. And then as I've learned and grown, because I've been knitting over a decade, as I've learned and grown and my taste has changed, I've realized kind of what's, you know, super important to me, what I enjoy making, what I'm not so fond of working with, and it's just made me more aware of that when buying yarn. And so sometimes when I go to look at yarn that I want to use for a specific project, I think, well, I have these colors in my head, like, do I have anything in stash that's close enough to these colors, or do I have anything in stash that I would be willing to compromise on these colors to use that up instead? And again, I'm not restricting myself and saying like, no, you can't buy any yarn this year, because I feel like that's a great way to fail. But I am trying to use stash more. I'm trying to use stash almost exclusively, except for when the situation calls for me to buy yarn. I know I have a sweater I want to knit, the adult version of the baby sweater that I showed at the beginning of this episode. And I know that I might need to order more white yarn for that. But that's specific project-based yarn purchases versus just buying just to buy. And again, I'm not restricting myself. I'm not saying I can't buy any yarn. I'm just saying I'm being more choosy with the yarn that I'm going to bring into my stash this year. I'm in no means trying to eliminate my stash. I know that there are makers out there that do that, and I'm you know, so happy for them. I'm really glad that works out for them. I am in no way trying to eliminate my stash. I am just trying to work from it more, so that I have more breathing room in my stash, so that when I do see yarn that I want to get on a whim, I don't mentally figure out where it's going to go on my shelf or where it's going to go in my containers. You know, I know that I have the breathing room to get it. So that's just kind of the goal that I'm working towards, is to use up some of my stash. Not all of it. I could never be stashless, okay? Congratulations to those makers that do it. I could never do it. But yeah, so I'm just trying to work from stash a little bit more. Kind of pull from there first, and then if I need something extra, then there's no problem to buy it. But pull from stash first. Catch me in about 3 months going on a yarn binge. But yeah, so that's the goal, is basically work from stash. I don't really have any upcoming cast-ons that I can think of. I definitely want to start the adult sweater pattern, but I'm kind of mentally reworking the math a little bit in my head. I'm kind of mentally replanning out the order of colors and everything, and kind of just testing some things mentally, and then hopefully I'll cast on by end of March or early April. I definitely want to finish the pinwheel scrap blanket first, and I want to finish the Meet Me in the Garden headband first as well. But yeah, I'm just gonna go from there, see what my projects turn out like, and of course I'll be updating you guys all on Instagram. So if you don't follow me, go ahead and head over there and follow me. All the places that you can follow me will be linked in the description box below, as well as links to all project pages for this episode and links to all patterns mentioned in this episode, again, unless they're linked in the project page. But yeah, so I will see you guys hopefully next month. Hopefully I will have a finished blanket or a near finished blanket to talk about. And some other works in progress to discuss, some new ones. Hopefully I'll finish Meet Me in the Garden and I can introduce a new work in progress. That would be fun. But yeah, I think I'm definitely going to try to go back to podcasting monthly instead of every week. I know for a while I did every other week or maybe even every week, and it just wasn't sustainable for me. And then by the time I went to every month, my life had just gotten so crazy I couldn't even think about picking up the camera. So yeah, I'm excited to be settled, to be back to podcasting again and talking about all things, yarn related. So I hope that you enjoyed this episode. If you did, consider hitting the subscribe button if you're not already, or leaving a comment letting me know your thoughts about some different things. Let me know if you think I'm going to finish the pinwheel scrap blanket by the end of March, because I have faith in myself, but I also know that I have a tendency to get distracted. So we'll see what ends up happening. Let me know what you think in the comments. And I will see you guys next month for episode 9 of the podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in. Bye.